And actually that kind of work ethic, the integrity part of it, you're going to have to really go all in here now. And you realise I'm really up against it here.
I can't wait for this one. Marc, you're the founder of Mobile Sports Arena, Mobile Sports Academy and the Make It Happen group. Your journey has started almost with a career-ending injury.
So I played football, I was about to turn pro. Sadly, a really bad back injury put an end to that. Didn't have my degree, didn't have the football. I was 21. For the first few years in my corporate world was all about working really hard, quite frankly, right? Because nothing was going to get landed to you on a plate for free.
A quote or phrase that you actually live by.
Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard.
And what other values do you think came to you through your parents and them instilling that tenacious hard working sort of characteristic?
Look, personal integrity, you'd like to think everybody's got that, right? Like, otherwise, why even in the building?
In terms of looking at the things that sort of shaped you when you were growing up, what would you say the main things were?
There was always a way of how are you operating when nobody's looking. But you have to pivot when life throws you these curveballs. That's what you then need to kind of lean on and then go and graph for it.
Now let's get into the story of everything. Welcome back to Focus on Founders. I'm Matthew Adams. In this podcast, we go beyond the highlight reel and we speak to founders about what it's actually like to be a business owner. Today, I'm joined by
Marc O'Brien.
Marc, you're the founder of Mobile Sports Arena, Mobile Sports Academy and the Make It Happen group. Your journey has started almost with a career-ending injury, a pivot through consulting and building a community-driven business that help people follow through on their potential. I can't wait for this one. Before we get into anything, we start everything off with the founder fast fire. So what that is, 9 questions. Don't think about it, just answer as quickly as possible and the first thing that comes to mind. So, you ready?
Go for it.
When was the last time you thought about calling it quits?
Probably about 2 years ago. You're thinking of it's just that overwhelming projects. That can be quite tough.
Most random place you've took a business call?
Probably a toilet.
Early riser or night owl?
Oh, early riser.
One truth about business people rarely said out loud?
They're a bit mad.
A quote or phrase that you actually live by?
Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard.
One app you couldn't run your business without?
ChatGPT.
Weirdest piece of advice you've ever been given?
Don't do it.
First call when everything's going wrong?
For my dad.
In one sentence, what makes a great founder?
The energy to start.
Perfect. That was Founder Fast Fire. Thanks for playing. This episode is brought to you by Dussel. Dussel is a premium, gender-neutral skincare brand founded here in Glasgow by Fraser. It's 5-star rated and recommended by GQ. If you want to grab yourself some of the Dussel product range, use code FOCUS15 and that'll get you 15% off the range. Now let's get into the story of everything. Before we go anywhere near kind of the businesses, who were you before all of that?
So I started out, trying to play football. I had no interest in going into banking or consulting. So I played football. I was about to turn pro. Sadly, a really bad back injury put an end to that. Went to university for a little while, tried to kind of do economics and French. I was fluent in French for a little bit, which was fun. Then went back into the football, trying to get treatment, etc. Sadly, it didn't work out. And so, there was that kind of, sliding doors moment when I eventually moved into the corporate world and started there back in 2000 or so.
And you grew up in Springburn. What was it like growing up there?
It was fun, yeah. Springburn's, sometimes be seen as a tough area or whatever, but I had a great upbringing. My mum and dad and my brother went to a good school. We played football all the time. That seemed to be all we ever did. And yeah, mum and dad was a plumber. Mum worked in a bank. And so, yeah, we were looked after well and, I enjoyed my childhood.
In terms of looking at the things that sort of shaped you when you were growing up, what would you say the main things were?
Work ethic and hard work was never far away, Mum and dad were definitely grafters. And they were always doing something. There was always the house was getting renovated or there was other things that were going on, but you could tell that whatever we got, they'd work for it. There was no lots of cash flying around, nothing like it, I don't think, but we were definitely, what we got, we'd worked hard for it. So that work ethic was definitely grounded very early.
And what other values came to you through your parents and, them instilling that tenacious, hard-working sort of characteristic.
Yeah, it's a bit of an odd one, but like personal integrity, you'd like to think everybody's got that, right? Like otherwise, why even in the building, right? But it's kind of obvious. But the amount of times you've come across people that perhaps don't have as much integrity as you'd like, or maybe treat things a bit differently. So there was always a way of how are you operating when nobody's looking, you know, and that kind of personal integrity thing really stuck with me.
And you mentioned that you didn't grow up with too much. Do you think that sort of experience of growing up like that has kind of shaped in terms of what your motivators are and what they kind of look like?
Yeah, definitely. And I think probably another reminder of it was when the football career finished. You know, didn't have my degree, didn't have the football, was 21, I think, give or take. And you realise I'm really up against it here. You know, I've got nothing to show for it, probably feel a bit of a failure, feeling sorry for myself. And actually that kind of work ethic, you know, the integrity part of it, you're going to have to really go all in here now. So the first few years in my corporate world was all about like doing some of the banking exams and just working really hard, quite frankly, right? Because nothing was going to get landed to you on a plate for free, you know. So,
and you touched on you were kind of set on the football career. How central was that to kind of your identity, and how big was that kind of dream for you?
It was, yeah. Like signed schoolboy forms with Kilmarnock as a 14-year-old. Played in the Celtic kind of youth academy as well for a while. There was no grand plans to go into banking or nothing like it. It was very much, you know, I'd like to think I'm going to turn pro pretty, you know, near 18 or so, and then that's when injury happened. So it was a real, you know, that 18 to 21 time period was all about seeing surgeons and doctors, and I think I saw a faith healer in London. If anyone think back to Glen Hoddle and all of that stuff, that was the thing. So my mate and I drove down to London, met some faith healer, spent a fortune on it. So you were doing everything to make it work. So because that was the dream, that was the thing that I could only do. You know, I thought of being in business or working in banking was, you know, was the kind of last thing probably at that moment in time, you know. So, but you have to pivot when, you know, life throws you these curveballs, you know.
And the spinal injury hit. What did that moment feel like? Because that was the big dream. That was the only thing that was central in your mind at that moment. Yeah,
it was. I can still remember to this day. I was walking through Central Station, going on a train to go down to Kilmarnock to train with the first team. It was like maybe the October school week or something, right? So they were bringing some of the younger kids in, and I remember just going, I don't feel good at all. Like my back's really painful. Went down there, got some treatment and things like that from the physio. Actually, we trained as normal. It was fine. But from that point on, was struggling to get through games and that kind of thing, you know. So it was just out of nowhere. It wasn't like a bad tackle or anything like it, you know. But it was that kind of, you know, realization there's a problem here, you know.
And that kind of moment, like of you're sitting there, you've done your training session. What's going through your head? Like, do you think this is it? This is me. I need to. Where's the plan B when you've not been thinking about this corporate career or a business, or what's going through your head?
Yeah, I was probably a little bit deluded, quite honestly, at the start, right? I think I'll get treatment, I'll shake it off like all football players do. A lot of players play with injuries all their career, and it is what it is, right? But, you know, a couple of months down the line, it wasn't going away, and then suddenly I was seeing MRI scans, and before you know it, that was coming through. The tricky part as well was my brother was turning professional already, so he was playing St Mirren's first team. He just got his move, I think, to Blackburn Rovers at the time, so we had been together all the way through that journey, and then suddenly we were diverging, and it wasn't divergent in a positive way from my perspective. You know, it was great for him, but suddenly I was like, actually, this is maybe not going to work out, and so I need to start thinking about plan B potentially, you know.
And how did that feel? I know myself, I've got a brother who's building businesses and doing things, and you always want your brother or your sister or whatever to do well, to do the best that they possibly can do. But there's also that bit inside you that's like, that should be me.
Rivalry, right? So, yeah. No, don't get me wrong. Like you want to win all day long, every day, right? But then you do see him on the telly at the time. He's playing against Henrik Larsson or whatever, right? When he came back up playing at Livingston, and you're thinking that could be me, you know. But I think after a while, you quickly realise that actually you need to stop feeling sorry for yourself, almost, right? And there's only so many times people can say, "Oh, you were a good player," you know, and this and that and the next thing. Actually, you need to just get on with it, you know. And so I think that's the kind of the make it happen part, you know. I realised that. No degree, no football career, stop feeling sorry for yourself. There's a little bit, you need to just kind of grab this and go with it, you know. And so that work ethic and the things that you've been, maybe the ingredients you've got from your parents and things like that, that's what you now need to kind of lean on and then go and graph for it, you know.
Yeah. And I think the final sort of pivotal part of you really kind of growing up in that kind of football experience was when you said that when we'd spoke the last time, you felt like you had hit a dead end. What was on the mind at that point, like when you'd hit that sort of rock bottom?
It was pretty sad time. Do you know what I mean? Pretty depressing. I was absolutely skint, right? No money. I wasn't done. I remember when I was training with St Mirren, I was also unemployed. So I'd marked myself as unemployed, I think. And I'd gone to the dole queue, sign on type thing, but I had my boots in my hand. So it was kind of like a bit of an odd setup, and I was trying to explain this is what I'm doing to try and get back into the ways. So it wasn't a particularly inspiring time from that point of view. And then eventually, the creative was becoming, I think I broke my nose as well in one of the games. And I was like, somebody's telling me I need to just stop and give this up, right? Do something else. And yeah, the kind of that sliding doors moment, applied for a local agency, ended up in a back office job in a bank. And then from there you started earning a bit of money. It wasn't great money, but it was enough to get going. And you start being a bit more self-sufficient, So, and I was, to that point, I think it was like, I need to just try and park this now. Let's not feel sorry for yourself too long, right? You need to get on with it. It's not worked out. And there's plenty of players that are much better than me who didn't make it for other reasons, And likewise, sometimes annoys me the players that did make it and they were pretty rubbish, right? So
I always think about, there's a lot of, I went very similar to you in terms of went through the youth academies, played at that quite decent level. And there was a lot of really talented people that didn't make it and didn't really have that plan. What would your bit of advice be to those kind of people?
Yeah, I think at the start, like I reflect on it now, my mum was always about, you need to have a plan B. I had half a brain at school, so she wanted me to stick in the school, do my hires and all that kind of stuff, and she wouldn't let me turn pro, right? That kind of thing. And I suppose I reflect on that now and say that's probably not the right thing to do. My personal view is that at that age, you need to go all in one thing if you're really good at it. Now, you might wake up at 20 years of age and you've been released from a football club or whatever, and you've not got anything to show for it. So, but I think having that kind of half-baked approach during those early years, I think could maybe set you back a little bit. I think everybody's in a big rush to get somewhere and like get more money and get that promotion, and then they've got the house and the car and everything that comes with it. You've got a long life. You've plenty of time to do that. You don't need to figure it all out by 21. You definitely need to figure it all out at 47 like me, right? I'm still learning. So I think it's almost like go all in it. I've got a young nephew right now. He's probably at that crossroads just now. He's playing football, and does he have to get a job in the meantime as well? And a lot of players are like that. My personal view is just go all in. Focus all in your profession. You get plenty of time to learn a trade or whatever else you're going to do. As much as that might be against some parents' opinions, right?
Yeah, no, I think that's great advice. And I think from the experiences that I've seen of the people that have went all in on things, it's definitely been a pivotal and for the most part positive. I don't think it happens every time, but I think that's kind of like a good point there to kind of bring us into the today and what that looks like. So for anyone new to your work, what you do you want to explain to anyone listening what that would be?
Yeah, so I'm a management consultant to trade. I've been doing that in the corporate world as well, but I've also built side businesses or main business outside of that as well. So I suppose Make It Happen is the main group name for what I do. Within that, we've different brands that we're building out. Some are live and have been running for a number of years. Some we're working on right now. So one of the brands is Mobile Sports Arena. It's a business in Paisley. It's been running for 8 years. It's a kind of low six-figure business, indoor, five-a-sides, children's birthday parties, corporate event hire. So we do that kind of stuff. We've got Mobile Sports Academy. So that's UEFA licensed coaching. So I do that with my brother. So he's got his A license and his elite youth license. We do one-to-one coaching. We get former professional football players come in and do the coaching with us. That's a six-figure business as well. So really trying to build those out over the last 7 or 8 years has been the kind of main focus. Separate to that, we've got other brands in it. I suppose the common denominator is there's a problem. What's the thing that we're trying to solve for? So one that we're looking at right now is it's just launched is Just Be, Just Be Lifestyle, which essentially is all about helping people be their authentic self. I think we're all kind of deluged with advice from all the kind of influencers and things like that, and I think it can be a bit overwhelming. So we launched Just Be, which is all about being your authentic self. So just be you, just be relentless. So it's all about mindset, habit forming, and apparel. We're trying to build that side of it out as well. So these are the big focuses. And then the one I'm quite passionate about that's going to come next year is Make It Happen Education, which is really taking a lot of the consulting skill set that I've gained over the last 10, 12 years or so and leveraging AI and then finding smart ways to apply it. Because right now, I think my concern, or I think the opportunity that I'm seeing is people can get stuff for free. You can go into Google, you can go into ChatGPT, you can get stuff for free, but there's too much. And how do you pick the right thing for you in that moment and then apply it and execute? So the Make It Happen education business is going to do that for you or with you, and give you the kind of tools to cut through the noise, quite frankly, and then help you get where you want to try and get to.
Great overview. I think it's really important for the listeners to understand you didn't actually start off going, do you know what, I've had the career-ending injury, I'm going to go into starting my own business. You went into consultancy, and you've worked your way up through the kind of bank. And tell us a wee bit about that side of things, because you went into a corporate career and then have decided that the right thing during that time was to start businesses and start them with your family, your brother and dad.
Yeah, that's stressful as well, by the way. So, yeah, I mean, it was out of absolute necessity, quite honestly, that I had to get a job at the time. Like, I'm no different from anyone else, so you have to earn some money, and so that's kind of where it started. But quickly realised that there was a pattern between the problems I'm trying to solve in the corporate world, you know, even in those early days in banking, and a startup. You know, a startup founder, and then right through to advising C-suite and execs, you know, in the last 10 years or so. They're all wrestling with some sort of problem of some sort, how to untangle it, how to fix a complex or get through a complex challenge. And I suppose there's that part of you're building someone else's business for them, or you may as well take the things you're learning and go and build your own business and help others build their businesses. And so that's the part that I've kind of segued on over the last 10, 15 years or so. And it really is the same challenges, you know. It's almost, if you think about it, as like if you reverse engineer it, you know, I don't think things are actually that complex. They're actually unclear. That's the difference. You know, they know where they want to get to. They're just not quite sure how to get there. And if you almost kind of step back and like follow the breadcrumbs, if outcome looks like this, what are the 10 building blocks you need to do to get through that? And that's what Make It Happen does, right? We try and find out what that end state outcome looks like. What's the kind of the map you want to try and get through? We try and decode that for you or with you, and then we execute. You know, so, and again, that's the same for a young guy or girl starting straight out of uni, straight into a bank, but you know, overwhelmed with all these anagrams they use in banks and things like that, right through to a startup, you know, starting your business, right through to someone who's maybe advising a C-suite. I think it's the same problem.
In terms of looking at the core problems that your businesses sort of all solve, what do they look like?
Yeah, it's probably down to 3 stages, right? It's that kind of clarity, you know, bringing clarity to the problem first of all. Then it's all about the roadmap that comes with it. So what's the right roadmap to kind of move it forward? And the third part is then, and this part I think that most people fail on, is the execution part. You know, I think every day we're coming up to it, January, right? We'll all have our New Year's resolutions. We're all going to go to the gym again. The gyms are crazy busy, right? And then come February, it's back to the same people that were there in September, October, right? So the enthusiasm was there. They got clear on what good looks like. I'm definitely going to go and buy the shorts, the new T-shirt. I've got stuff from Christmas. Okay, the roadmap's starting to form. They want to get from £200 to £180 or whatever. Execution's not there. And so I think that, you know, I'm oversimplifying it, but that's ultimately what we do. You know, we're looking at applying that simple methodology depending on the market or the client type that we're working with, and then help them execute. But the part about the execution is then accountability, you know, and actually saying, like, how do we make sure that you get to where you want to get to? And that's I suppose, the trick for it.
If we create a picture for somebody that's listening, a business comes to you and they've got this idea of what they want, how do you take that from start to finish? What does that look like? Yeah,
so typically you're trying to, it's asking the why. Why are you wanting that? Why do you want it to go that way? You know, and try and unpack it almost. Because quite often what they think their why is, you know, they want to make more revenue, they want to make more profitability, they want to achieve some level of success. But what's the why? What's driving beneath that? You know, Simon Sinek, you've probably heard that, the listener will have heard that. You know, start with your why. If you can unpack that first, a lot of the other stuff starts to become clearer. And then from there, for me, that's all about then starting to define the scope. So, and the scope is then all about, more importantly, quite often, what you don't want to achieve. You know, so be really clear on that, and then get that out of the way. And then that leaves you what you're actually going to execute against. Because I think that kind of data point overwhelm almost, like you're quite sure where you're going to go. So it's almost like understanding the why, what's driving this, you know, for you. lock down the scope of what you're going to achieve or not achieve, for that matter, like what's out of it, and then building that roadmap, as I said, and helping them, progress towards it.
And you think having this experience from the corporate job, you would have been able to do and create and build these businesses that you have done to the same kind of level or idea? Do you think that you had that from a younger age, or do you think that's been learned?
It's been learned, I think, in the main, I would say. In economics at uni back in the day, like the supply and demand and the equilibrium point that sits within that, all these things are still relevant. It's good to have that, technical knowledge, but then there's actually the application of it. And that's the part I've maybe gained over the years in working with people that are far smarter than me, who are really good at what they do, and quite honestly learning from people who have failed fast. I call it that, So really they go in and they realise this is not working out, but they more importantly record or understand why it's not worked out. Don't do that again. Yeah. But then and that's your accelerator. That helps you move it forward quicker the next time, right? And that's the difference in going to ChatGPT and saying, I'll just do that. But there's be 10 reasons why you shouldn't do it in that certain way. And that's the part that Make It Happen would do, right? We're there to help you untangle that and then execute with you.
Yeah. And I like that point that you kind of said, you like the people that fail fast. I'd seen a quote recently, and it was like, if I told you that you were 30 failures away from success, how quickly would you fail?
Absolutely, yeah.
And I think that's a great kind of tie-in to kind of looking at that. In terms of looking at Make It Happen, broadly speaking, there was obviously the individual businesses within the core group. Did that kind of happen naturally? Or was that like, here's a big master plan, like that's what it looks like, here's what's coming underneath?
I wish it was that. It would have been much easier, right? It's, honestly, it's organic. It just grows. And I think you grow as a person. You realise what you really like doing, what you're passionate about. The Make It Happen name or the phrase actually came from football. So anyone who's played football, you've probably heard a manager shouting at you saying, go and make it happen. And I couldn't work out what they meant, right? But after a while, you quickly realise that if you're up against a team who are low block and you can't get through them, that kind of thing, you do need people that are more creative to go and make it happen. And whilst I was never the most creative type player, I was a defender, I also had that bit about me to go and just drive through it, and try and win games, and be that person who would take the ball under pressure and play through a press or whatever and try and be that part of it. So Make It Happen was one of the things that you would hear, and it happened across all the clubs I was at. And I remember Bobby Williamson at Kilmarnock also shouting it as well. Sometimes not always in a nice way. It felt like he was pretty direct. But it's the same in work life as well. You're finding, like, banks bring you in, they don't want all the sob stories. It's like, this is the problem. Go and fix it. Go and make it happen. And that's kind of where the company name came from.
A quick pause in the episode. Thank our sponsor for today's episode, Dussel. Dussel is high-performing, multitasking skincare products with no unnecessary steps. It's just exactly what your skincare needs. If you want to try the Dussel range today, use Focus15 for 15% off. The philosophy itself for Make It Happen, does that derive from football as well, or is that been the kind of broader?
Yeah, I'm quite passionate about kind of elite level sport, so much as I didn't play quite to the elite level, you still learned a lot of good habits from that time period. And then you follow people like Roger Federer or all these players, right? And their background, you read their books and things like that. There's usually quite a common theme running through it, right? In terms of how they want to just go after things and get things done and deliver no matter what type thing. Now, obviously at the absolute elite level, you want to have those extra kind of sports psychology comes into it as well. So I'm really interested in that. Again, when the football injury happened, I had a sports psychologist working with me. We did a hypnosis and all sorts at the time.
Oh, really?
So, and it was anything to get that extra half yard, as I call it, to try and get through or beyond where you're at in that moment in time. So, if it didn't work out on the football, you can still apply that same methodology in the kind of workspace as well.
And do you think that's something that you do as of today? It's like you're looking for those in business. It's obviously not that half yard, but those extra inches, those extra bits to get you ahead.
Absolutely, yeah. So I'll give you an example where we use the disc profile. So if anyone's seen it before, so it's, I'm going to forget it now, but it's like dominant influence, stewardship, and conscientiousness. And so it's a little survey. You can go in, anyone get it on Google, and you answer the questions on it. Don't think about it too quickly, too long. Just answer it, and it gives you a disc profile, right? And it's your disc profile, and you might be a D, so you're dominant. I could be an I. It's not that mine's is better than yours or vice versa. It's just your style. and it's how you react under pressure or in certain situations. But I suppose if you understand people's profile, right, I will engage with you differently. Not to in some way kind of get one over you or nothing like it. It's about getting the most out of both of us. So if I used to be a D, which meant I spoke very fast, quite dominant. I was a program manager. I'd get stuff done. That'd be quite intimidating for maybe a junior member of staff who might be a C, conscientiousness, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they like all about the analysis and working it through, and they want to feel right about it before they'll do anything, right? If you get me, the overbearing D, telling them to go and do it, right? I'm not getting the best out of that person.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that's the half yard. If you understand that person in that example of they're an I or a C or an S, how do I flex my style to get the most out of them? So small things like that I'd use quite a lot, and particularly in large teams. If you're on a program with 30 or 40 people in it, there might be a lot of Ds. That's a nightmare, right? Because they all want to be first, right? If you've got too many S's, like they're all pretty horizontal, right? They don't really want to get stuff done as much. They want to make sure everybody's right and everybody feels quite comfortable. So I've always been interested in understanding that extra, side of things that can get more out of business or get more out of people.
I think when you were talking about that, what I was thinking about was being in a sales environment. And is that something that you can try and plan for in terms of if you're trying to then, negotiate with someone, or is that purely for an internal team and trying to get buy-in and pull people together?
It's both, but I think you have to approach it from a point of view, you're trying to do the right thing for both parties, so it's a win-win, it's not a win-loss.
Yeah.
So in a sales context, if I'm approaching you, I want to do more business with you, clearly I want to understand your motivators, your drivers, maybe what football team you support, if it's as simple as that. It could be other things, right? Are you family orientated? Do you, so you'd understand those things on the side as well. What's your drivers? Who's your boss? Who are you trying to impress? What does good look like? So these are all things you're trying to, I suppose, build that kind of horizon scanning around it, right? Like what's driving this person's behavior? Mm-hmm. What's driving the buying process behavior as well? So you might be the person that really wants to buy this, but you're not the one that's signing the check. So It could be somebody 3 lines above you, right? Well, that's fine. So how do we find the smart route to get to them without going over your head? Because ultimately you're the person we're dealing with just now. So there is a part of it understanding that overarching kind of landscape, I suppose.
And I've spoken to a couple of people on the podcast already. And one of the key themes was kind of anything that you're looking at doing, especially in an early stages, it's making them align with one another. So, for example, if I was going to be a tutor, I have a tutoring business, and I was going to have a podcast where I spoke to influencers doing silly things like maybe throwing themselves off a roof or something into a pool, right? They don't align.
Yeah.
So the sort of thing that we were talking about was making sure all the things that you're doing are aligning. And I think that's kind of the area that you've kind of hit the nail on the head with in terms of making it happen. Yeah,
exactly that. And it comes back to that clarity, the roadmap and execution, and you can apply that across all sectors. So like my daughter's got a business as well. She's using that really basic formula, to say like, what does good look like? Okay, well, we understand that. What does it not look like? Okay, I understand that. Now, what's the roadmap to get through that? And then what are the options to get through that, to get to that end outcome as well? And then it's all about the execution, the habits, forming them over and over and over again. And it's doing the boring stuff, quite honestly, consistently.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone rocks up and loves going to the gym at 5 a.m. or whatever, those things they don't like doing. But the benefits will come in 3 months, 6 months' time.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the same here. So, and that's all we're doing across these businesses. It's the exact same. I've got a dashboard that I use at home through Go High Level. That's the technology that we're using, which allows us to just see where we are on the journey for all these different businesses, either through sales and outbound activity, or if it's a startup, what are the kind of key building blocks we want to have in place for that business as well. So, but it's all done through the same dashboard, through the same make it happen roadmap, and
it's all structured in that same way.
Yeah.
Go High Level is an interesting one, so I want to touch on that. So obviously a CRM, I think when you're probably at a early stage where you're looking to kind of just take that next step and really harness in on the data to help you grow, a CRM is really, really important. Do you recommend go high level? Like,
I do, yeah. I mean, I've had to bring one or two individuals in to help me on it, quite honestly, because I'm not the most techie. So I got it up and running initially, but it's more about the automation around it. So on mobile, for example, we've been running for 8 years.
mm-hmm.
So I've got 8 years worth of email addresses, 8 years worth of phone numbers. All the booking systems we've used has all been online. So initially when we first launched, it was a piece of paper, and it was pretty old school. But now we've got that data points that we can use it. Now you have to use it, efficiently to the benefits of the customer and ultimately to the benefit of the business as well. So, but putting all that through Go High Level as well is the part that's really kind of quite exciting, because you can then potentially cross sell and upsell as well. People are interested in to playing five-a-sides and mobile. They could be interested in habit forming, mindset management through Just Be. Some of the apparel they can use perhaps on the pitches and playing football, right? So there's different things we could do to cross-sell across that. It's the same processes, same data points we're using. It's incredibly boring for those that don't like doing it, but the upside on the other side of it is the part that's quite exciting.
Yeah, it's all the same motivations, the same reason, the same fundamentals. In terms of like looking across the next sort of like 12 months to 5 years, what does the future look like for you and your businesses?
Yeah, for me, I'd love to meet somebody in a couple of years' time and say, make it happen, help me do X. And I don't know what that is right now for them, right? But they found some of our content, they found some of our support materials, they maybe won one of our training courses, and it helped them open a door that they were on. It was locked at that moment in time in their life, and it helped them accelerate where they wanted to get to. So I think that's the kind of the softer side of it. I suppose actually scaling, make it happen into like a seasoned brand, something people absolutely recognize as something that adds value. It's hardworking, it's integrity, it's all those different things. And yeah, drive success for people ultimately, right? That's what we're trying to achieve. So I think make it happen is all about probably doing more with less now. So it can feel a bit overwhelming having these 3 or 4 or 5 different types of business around. I'm not planning to expand it beyond that. Mm-hmm. It is now about going deeper on these ones, and as I say, building out the scale for it as well.
And for you, basically what you said there was supporting people the best way possible to help them thrive. Was that always the motivation for you? Like, I don't know, but I think when most people are younger and they think, oh, money's the pivotal, that's exactly what I'm going to start a business for, is to get the bag, get that. And was that the same for you? Was there a point where it changed, or was it always like, I want to be here to support people?
This is where I get the violin out a little bit, right? But it felt at different points, particularly at the start when football finished, was I didn't have that help, quite honestly. So you're sitting in an organisation, you need to kick on with your career and do something, right? Didn't seem to be an awful lot of that around, right? So, and if I look back now, when junior consultants come into my world, I want to help them because I know what it was like to be overwhelmed and all these, you need to go and get the ABC policy document and things like that. And like, I don't know what that document is, let alone what it stands for, right? And so probably back then, 20 odd years ago, it was like nobody seemed to want to help you. At least that was my perception of it. I suppose now with the information so readily free, ChatGPT, Google, God knows what else, right? It's easier now, I would say, for people, but it's now about applying it in the right way and fail fast. So whereas back then we never even had ChatGPT. I don't think we had Google, right? That shows you how old I am. I think it was Ask Jeeves or something, right? So wow. I'm sure my age for some of your audience. So fast forward now, why hold the ball, like pass the ball, right? So if somebody's coming through now and they want to learn something quickly, help them, So because I do think there's a collaboration part of it now, particularly around like your folks and founders. I was at your recent round table. And it was infectious. People want to help each other. They want to do the right thing for them. I'm sharing my experiences and vice versa. I was learning from some of the people at the table as well. And I think that's the difference now. Like I want to do more of that. Mm-hmm. I think you just win more collectively. Yeah. Whereas I have had some poor experiences perhaps where people don't want to pass the ball to you, as I call it. And it's all about you have to have slightly sharp elbows to try and get anywhere, right? The consulting world's a bit like that. Banking like that can be a little bit like that. So I think, why not go the other way entirely? Almost give stuff away for free. That's kind of the content. That's the approach we're doing for Make It Happen. Collaborate with people, and ultimately the good will always come eventually.
Yeah, I think there's always a saying that I revert back to. I'm going to butcher this. It's going to be absolutely awful, but it's run fast, go alone.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Go far,
yeah.
Go together.
Go together. Yeah.
I think I've nailed that in a slow process.
We're both on the same page. We know what you're talking about.
Hopefully but I think like for folks on founders in the wider community, there's a very strong alignment with kind of what you're doing, and being community orientated, supporting one another, and I suppose ultimately making stuff happen. Which I think's the best way for everyone collectively. I wanted to touch on some of the successes that you've had and the challenges. I think quite often a lot of what you see maybe on social media is all this polished, like perfect day, like woke up at 5 and went to the gym and I loved the gym and all that sort of stuff. When you wake up and it's cold and you're dreading it and you can't be bothered and all that sort of stuff. What I wanted to use this opportunity is find out a bit of the kind of deeper stuff that nobody really sees. What a lot of the time we don't reflect entirely on the journey that we're on because we're focused on what's next. In terms of your journey so far, what's something that you're proud of that you've done? I'm
proud of that I made it work. I'll make it happen. Should I say that with my brother and my dad at Mobile? And I think it's funny now because we can now reflect on some of the things that went wrong, quite honestly, at the start, right? So my dad's a retired plumber, my brother's a retired football player, I'm a management consultant by trade, so try to bring those three skill sets together, and they are skill sets. There's a unique, there's a unique skills we all bring to the table, but we struggled at the start, right? So we had different levels of what good looks like, and it's not that mine was better than theirs and vice versa, right? But it was, it could be frustrating. But I think we quickly realised that actually, if we're going to, make this work, we have to understand who's good at what my strengths are, what my brother's strengths are, what my dad's are, and then quite frankly get out each other's way. And so if I reflect on that now, I'm quite proud of that because we now know, right, that's Burton's gig, right? That's my dad's gig, and that's it. And we let them get on with it, and it's worked well. Whereas at the start, we were probably just three guys shouting at each other sometimes, right? Which was never the best look, particularly in front of a client or customers in the room. So we've matured in that sense. Yeah, and we work well together from that point of view. So, and like, don't get me wrong, it's a commercial business. We want to make money. We want to generate revenue. But at the same time, we ultimately are family. Mm-hmm. So we've managed to still navigate that without necessarily killing each other, right? And we still go down the pub on a Friday night, go for a beer. We're still pals as much as anything,
Yeah. And I think that's like a really good point for people that are listening that are just starting out, and they're maybe starting out with a friend or a family member, or they're not doing it themselves. That it's really important that you've found that one of the ways to work efficiently and without killing one another is by finding what each other are good at, and sticking within those kind of lanes and just leaving each other to do that. I think that's quite a positive thing to take. Yeah,
and I think if I reflect on it, we should have done it sooner. Like I remember at the start wanting to do a good old-fashioned roles and responsibilities. So everybody was in, you'd have your space, and this is what you're going to do. And I didn't push it hard enough with my brother and my dad in that example, right? So what it meant was that everybody was doing everything, and then nobody was doing some of the things, right? And so it took us a longer time to get to where we wanted to get to. Personally, it was my view. Now, we got there in the end, but I suppose if somebody's starting out again with their family, it's almost like having that terms of reference. I'd call it, have a document, have something written down that says, these are my strong points, these are the things I'm going to focus on, these areas I think I'm weak at, but I think you could be good at, and have that agreement up front, because you'll feel fast then, as to use that language again, you'll be able to see the things that you're really good at, and you'll move forward at pace. And you know what? You'll probably learn, actually, I'm not as good at that as I thought I was, right? So actually, maybe that should be you that does that, right? But at least you've got that frame of reference straight away, and there's no surprises, whereas we probably had a couple of argy-bargies eventually, right? We gave that to you, and that was your job, Mark, or whatever, right? So like, actually having it written down is probably going to accelerate you in the longer term.
And do you think that's helped just now, so the point where you can go and have that beer and not necessarily just be thinking about, have you done that, or whatever?
Yeah, definitely. And again, to use a football analogy, if you ever see your, I don't know, if there's a 4-4-2 and the two strikers, like they seem to play and they're like telepathic, right? They don't even need to look at each other. They can just pass the ball and before you know it, the ball's in the back of the net. You know, so that's the kind of, I think, I'm not quite saying we're quite Toshat and Keegan or whatever it was back in the day. We just know like certain things that we're good at, I'm good at, and vice versa, they're good at, and we operate better. That takes time, right? You know, we've been running for 8 years now, so but if you're starting out again, if I was starting out again, I'd write it down, you know, because then you can level set on expectations of each other as well, and run faster.
And do you think, I suppose, what do you think, sorry, is been the hardest part about running multiple brands and trying to get multiple things off the ground at similar times as well?
Yeah, it can be a bit overwhelming. Do you know what I mean? And I'm probably a bit glass half full. I'll do that, and before you know it, you're sitting there with something that's going to take you 3 weeks to do rather than the 3 days you originally thought it was going to take. So I think that's a challenge, but quite often when that happens, it's not overwhelming. You need to just slow down. Let's slow down to go faster. So actually prioritising your projects across the board, either through commercial opportunities going to come with it, or the customer impact that's going to come, or if it's a legal thing or a regulatory thing. So if my accounts need to be done by a certain time, you might just need to pause down and look at what's the most important thing right now. And then from there, you move forward. So yeah, that's happened a couple of times, right? Particularly if, like during COVID, you know, we were indoor contact sport and mobile. I think we were the first to close and the last to open. Because of the nature of the disease that was going around. But obviously we're desperate for revenue, right? So how do we make sure we do this in a safe way? Meanwhile, doing, you know, the right thing by the business as well. You know, we still had contractors to pay for, etc., etc. So it was a really tough time. The way we did it was literally a good old fashioned. We used Moscow. So it's must, should, could, or would, and you can put the O's in between, right? So must, and it's literally what are the things we must do, what are the things we should do. So the direction we were getting at the time from the government or whatever, right? But it wasn't like set down in stone. What are the things we could do to make things even better for the customer experience at the time? So remember the things about one way, you can only walk one way in shops and things like that. We did all that. And then what are the things we could do that we would like to do, make it even better for customers? So that was a small tool. Like, again, this is the make it happen kind of foundations being applied in mobile, where I use that tool. It's the overwhelm of all this stuff. I'll just write it down. It's must, should, could, would. It's an old one. We've used it in change management for years, but applying it in a football setting. And it helped us cut through all the noise. So we didn't fall foul of the government and the things we must be doing. And likewise, we didn't go the other way. We were doing nothing in terms of commercial opportunities as well. So we spotted other ways to kind of service customers during that period.
And I think that's like a lot of things that many businesses missed out on are finding the opportunity within kind of that time at COVID and stuff, and being an indoor football venue for that part of the business is a tough one to navigate during that time.
It was pretty grim.
Seeing in terms of some of the young athletes that come to you, is there any stories that kind of really moves you and, you know, sits in the back of your mind? Yeah,
there's loads, quite honestly. There's probably two that spring to mind. There's one or two players that have come in the academy. So the academy classes Saturday and a Sunday morning. So they come in the 9 o'clock classes, the 3-year-olds to 5-year-olds. So they're pretty young, right? And they've got UEFA licensed coaches that are looking after them, right? Now, they're not getting necessarily the full UEFA licensed experience that you might expect from a professional if you're 15 or 16 years of age, but they're getting the kind of good habits, you know, back to the mindset and making it a fun environment and that kind of thing. But one or two of those players at that age stayed with us all the way through, right? And then sadly they left us probably when they got to like 13, 14, because they'd signed for a Rangers or a Kilmarnock or something, right? So their games were the same day. So it was almost like we had a small part in their development during that period. And then sometimes you'll see them. I'll be watching my nephew who plays at Rangers and you'd see him come up against some of these players. And he was in our academy, you know. So it's like, and they genuinely always kind of, it's a nice high five. There's a bit of a hug there moment. Not normally me, it's my brother, because he was always there every day. But you know that we did something right there to help them, you know. The second part is where children have come in for our birthday parties. You know, little Johnny's birthday party for his 4th or 5th. and then like he's back for his 4th birthday party over the last 5 years, right? It's like, there must be other places you can have a birthday party, right? But for some reason, we've done something right? We've managed to appeal to the parents. They've always had a good experience, and they bring 20 of their classmates. And so I just feel like there's something in that, right? Like it's, of course we want to book revenue and like put money in the till, as I say, but there must be more than that. And I would like to think it's because we do interact with them in the right way. We make them feel special, genuinely, make it a good experience for them in the parties. And then they leave and say good things about us, normally.
And I think that's a good thing for anyone starting a business to pick up on, is like those core things, is like focusing on the customer and making sure that they are either the product or service is, exactly what they've kind of came for, it's to the best level possible, and so that they remember that interaction, that experience forever. So I love the stories. It's great.
And it's I think it's just my brother and I just being kids again, quite honestly, right? And my dad, right? Because we've the kind of, we play like the Champions League theme music, for example, right? Right. So if you're a young kid, right, and you just want to play, football, you're always like, back in the day, you'd want to be, I don't know, your favourite football player at Celtic or Rangers or whatever, and you're playing, 10-21 or whatever the games were back then. It's the same now, right? But it's just now even better because you can see all these players on the TV. And so what we try and do is ignite their imagination, right? And we use the Champions League theme music. So we've got the Players' Tunnel at Mobile, and you walk through it. One of the murals on the side has got hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. There's a photo of a mural of Messi, and they go out there to the Champions League music. But they go crazy, right? It's a genuine, I think we definitely spark something in them, right? To the point where we need to be a bit more tough on them and the referees, because they get a bit too excited sometimes, we don't want people getting hurt, so, but that's all born from our experience as kids, but all we've done is understand the kind of problem statement almost, like, or what does good look like, and then monetize it, so, and then the parents walk away going, oh my God, he's not stopped talking about it, and they come back into the academy 2 weeks later, and you can tell we've had an impact, so it's fun, and that's why you pick a business that you're passionate about, right? Like you genuinely, you'll make money. Of course, we all want to do that, but ultimately you need to enjoy it as well. Yeah,
100%. And I wanted to then go on to some of the questions from the community. So you're part of the community, Focus on Founders community. For anyone that's not heard about this before, is a community of business owners, business founders that want to grow their businesses and support others in the process. So they've been asking questions, as well as some of the people in the streets of Glasgow, Edinburgh, and so forth. So in terms of some of the stuff that we've been asked, we'll start off with the one that's kind of fun. Dinner with 3 people, dead or alive, of course. Who are you choosing and why?
Oh, don't know. That's what it shows off quite a few things, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I think alive, I think Martin O'Neill will be one, right? So I'm a big football fan, and I do find I've been listening to his book recently, so I'd like to pick his brains and work out what the hell did I really think about. We could beat with Porto in 2003, right? So I'd be interested in that. I'm trying to think who else dead. I don't know, like JFK. I've always been fascinated by all the conspiracy theories that come with that, right? Because I think there is a lot of it. So
he's not going to be enjoying his dinner. He's getting a grilling about all these
exactly,
questions.
100%. Right? I'm trying to think who else. Yeah, and I'm a big Oasis fan. So yeah, I mean, I've just been to Oasis at Wembley. So Superb. It's got to be Liam or Noel, right? That'd be brilliant,
Yeah, perfect. Love them. If you were starting a new business from scratch, and only had £100, what would you do and how would you start it?
Good one. I'd reflect on what's a niche that people are struggling with, and then go all in on that one thing. So if you've only got that £100, it's not going to go very far. So I'd think about that one thing that is definitely a problem that you can solve for and be passionate about. And then I'd find smart ways to use automation to make it happen. So ChatGPT is free, Google's free. You can do, you can use Canva, for example. You can build an ebook quite quickly for like a tenner or nothing, right? So before you know it, wrap your brand around it, your personal brand, and you can then start to build out a business. So, but you need to solve for the actual problem. So understanding the niche that you're operating in, first of all. So I'd almost was that thing, Abraham Lincoln's, if you're going to chop a tree down, you spend 9 hours sharpening the axe or something, right? And then 1 hour chopping the tree. So before you spend your £100, do your homework first on the niche and then go for it.
A good thing. I think it's really interesting because nowadays you can, from my experience now, you don't need money to start businesses. Like you can, if you've got a problem and it solves a problem, you get the traction one way or another.
Yeah.
In terms of if someone's feeling overwhelmed right now, where should they start?
Write it down. So we all get overwhelmed for various reasons, either personal life or professional life. Write it down. Write down the 10 things that you're worried about. What are the things that you really need to focus on? Maybe use the Moscow analogy.
Yeah.
Because that will give you clarity. And then from there, it's the roadmap that comes with it. It's okay. That's what I need to do. That's the clarity. Then how do we move it forward? I'm really bad for having about 1,000 things going through my head and then forgetting the 999 things that I should be doing. So actually, I've got a massive whiteboard at home that I just write everything down. And quite actually, you look back and go, that was really important at that point, but I've not done anything with it. But then you realise all the things you have done. But I get a bit of comfort knowing that I've at least got a record of what I need to do at some point, So yeah.
So here's your top tip. Get a whiteboard, write it down.
Write it down, right, yeah. I don't trust myself not to do it, but don't write it down.
And the last thing, so before we wrap up, we ask everyone that comes on the podcast the same question. When people talk about the work that you've done 10 years from now, what do you hope that they say?
I'd hope that I made a positive impact, We've all got a short life, right? So you want to have fun while you're doing it. So I'd like to think that I had an impact for them and got stuff done for them or with them, or the content that I produced for them, they got benefit from it and it helped move the dial for them and their business. And I'd like to think that they look back and go, like, that was a fun period. Anytime I engage with Marc or make it happen, it added value to my life. Like we've all had plenty of experiences where it didn't add value to our life. I was like, I'll never do that again, right? So I don't want to be that guy, right? I'd love to be the one that they go, yeah, that was worth it, right? Like I bought a book or a training course or I watched something and it was really helpful for me. And to this day, I still get a real buzz from children's birthday parties, as I touched on earlier. When they turn back and they say that was a great experience. The kids are now grown up; they would never come back again, but they'll say good things about it. Mobile had a positive impact on that one. So
love it. Lastly, thanks, Marc, for coming on. It's been a pleasure to have you on.
Hey, it's Fraser from Dussel here. Before you go, I just wanted to hop on and say a quick thank you for having Dussel as part of this podcast, and thanks to Matthew and the Focus on Founders community. Dussel was built here in Scotland with a core mission to protect your skin for life. And what that means is small daily habits that add up and make an actual difference to your skin health for the long term. And if you think about it, there's so much noise out there. What we want to do is simplify skincare and make it really easy in steps that are minimal effort for maximum results. If you want to check out Dussel, you can do so at dussel.com and use code FOCUS15 for a nice discount. Future you says thanks.
If you want to continue to follow Marc's journey, mobile, make it happen, all that stuff, we'll put all the information down in the description so you can follow him with his journey. And lastly, make sure you're subscribed so you can see the next episodes that are coming out. Thanks.